kind of credit, or maybe they did actually provide some work for prior SOCOM games, and for whatever reason they were not credited as they should have been. I really just don't know how we can explain that away. But this is something where it kind of goes into what has been a historical problem for SOCOM, especially coming from me, where I've covered PlayStation news every week for a 12-year period. We don't get credible SOCOM rumors. It just doesn't happen. We never talk about it because nothing ever credible comes up that we can dial back to a reliable source that really does give us a key indicator that Sony is trying to do something with this franchise. It just has not happened. They closed Zipper, and while they do own the IP, we've never seen them try and scout an external studio, build a new team. There's just been nothing there where they've really explored SOCOM in a meaningful way. I'm sure maybe it's happened. I'm sure talks have happened and things like that, but we don't have anything. I'm inclined to say that SOCOM is not coming. Also because, I mean, I feel like I'm the only one that says this nowadays, but I don't know what you do with SOCOM in this modern landscape, right? I mean, how do you bring that franchise back? I feel like the gameplay, if you stay by the books and really make a proper, new SOCOM game that feels like SOCOM, trends in gaming, they change quite often, right? I don't think that gameplay is really going to hold up for a modern audience, right? So while that might be good for, long, diehard SOCOM fans, I just don't think they would find a sustainable audience. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm inclined to say that's what would happen with a modern SOCOM. Now, what if you dramatically change the gameplay and try and make it more conducive to a modern audience? Well, now you're going to be walking into a lot of negative press for the game not feeling like SOCOM, right? So I don't know what you do with that franchise. I don't think there's really a place for it nowadays. But either way, I just think this is not really the indicator we were looking for to know for certain if SOCOM is returning. It just seems like there's enough here to tell us that this is not actually a thing. I mean, I've seen other people propose the idea that, what about the Deviation closure? Jason Blundell going over to SIE, poaching a lot of Deviation employees before the closure. Is that this project? And that doesn't line up with, again, when the mocap work was done. So I don't think there's really anything here.
If you think Sony is going to listen to the SOCOM community, who has already given Sony quite a bit of money, you are mistaken. Sony has moved on. They no longer wish to compete with Call of Duty, since Call of Duty already helped sell PS3 units. Look at hockey. 989 Sports used to make hockey games, but they stopped. Why? They could not touch the competition, so they no longer wished to try. After reading that quote, I decided to do some research on my own and compare the SOCOM series directly to the Call of Duty series. I took 4 major titles from SOCOM and Call of Duty from the years 2002 and 2012 and created the following timeline. In 2002, SOCOM U.S. Navy SEALs hit the shelves for the first time and sold 3.7 million copies of the game. In 2003, SOCOM 2 U.S. Navy SEALs came out, still considered to be the best SOCOM game in the series as of today, and it sold only 3 million copies. In 2008, after a few years of developing PSP titles, SOCOM U.S. Navy SEALs Confrontation came out, and Confrontation only sold a mere 1.3 million copies. And then in 2011, the abomination that is SOCOM 4 U.S. Navy SEALs came out and sold a measly 900,000 units. Every time a new SOCOM game would come out, it would take more time, cost more money, but due to the competition, would get destroyed on the amount of units sold. Let's compare this to Call of Duty. In 2007, Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out and sold 18 million units across all of its platforms, and PlayStation alone sold 6.6 million units. That is over double any of the SOCOM games. Then 2010 rolled around, and this is the same time where Sony was pressuring Zipper to make a game that could compete with Call of Duty, and Treyarch released Call of Duty Black Ops, which sold an astonishing 30.6 million copies. 12.6 of which were sold on the PlayStation alone. The following year, in 2011, the same year that SOCOM 4 came out, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was released, again breaking its record with 30.7 million copies and 13.3 million just on the PlayStation. And then lastly, in 2012, Treyarch released Call of Duty Black Ops 2, which sealed the fate for SOCOM ever coming back with another 29.1 million copies, with 13.8 million sold on PlayStation alone. Just a few weeks ago, in December of 2015, Shuhei Yoshida, the president of Sony Computer Entertainment Worldwide Studios, explained why SOCOM PS4 will not be happening anytime in the near future. The following is from an article by GamingBolt.com, and Yoshida had this to say about SOCOM fans. I appreciate the passion and their dedication every time there's a chance to voice their opinion on things they want to see come back. The latest that I understand had over 10,000 people who had signed a petition. So there's high expectation when there's a rumor that we are bringing back some of the PS2 games, and they're like, oh, SOCOM was one of the PS2 titles they wanted to see, but it wasn't there. That made people really angry, and I've been bombarded with angry messages. Some people say that I don't qualify for my job and that I should leave the industry or something like that. So I appreciate the passion, but it's not easy to bring back. In an online game, you move on. So much quality and production values, everything is way, way higher. People have great memories of playing these games many years ago, but people's experience have moved on as well. So even if they say they had a great time and they want to experience it again, they may not know how much higher their own expectations have become. Yoshida ended the interview with this statement. We have to gauge the interest in what they are saying and what they really want to see or play. We have to balance that with what we can do, with the number of people who will enjoy our game. And we just don't have an answer for that. We are extremely proud of what our teams have accomplished during those days, but we have to balance everything. You see, fellow gamers, the undeniable fact is that approximately 1.2 billion people play video games. 700 million of those play online games, and 100 million of those play Call of Duty. Unfortunately, having 10,000 people sign a petition to support SOCOM is not even a drop in the bucket in the grand scheme of things. Hashtag we are the 0.1%. Hashtag dreams crushed. And with that last statement, thus ends the chapter of my favorite gaming series of all times, SOCOM.
Diet Soda Soldiers, I bring you KILL-DILL. KILL-DILL, it's Jaffe. What's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, how are you?
Pretty good, man.
What's up?
Well, I just kind of think that PlayStation should really look at the success of Helldivers 2. And also, like a lot of the headlines I've been reading, I don't know how prevalent this is, but it seems like there was a demand for PvP within the game. And I know the original Helldivers 1 wasn't PvP, but I was looking at some of the sales numbers on Helldivers 1, and I believe it sold around 2 million copies on Steam alone, and I can't find the official numbers for console sales, but I can't imagine it being that much higher. So I'm guessing ballpark like 4 million units on the original game.
Okay.
And, and that came out, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think Sony should look at that success and the demand for a PvP, and whether it doesn't have to be SOCOM, Killzone, Resistance. I know we've been, beating that dead horse with a stick forever, but yeah. I think they should really consider some of those AA multiplayer experiences and try to fill that void with them not having COD, and looking at like certain things like how they turn around and canceled Factions 2 after they had Bungie do quality control for. And I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like Bungie doing quality control on anything Naughty Dog to me is just like, come on, guys.
Counter-Strike 2 is a perfect demonstration of how a new SOCOM could be made to work if it was developed and supported in the right way. Let's dive into why Counter-Strike 2 is a great example. First of all, it's an update to a beloved classic that still holds its charm. It builds upon the success of its predecessor, with newer features like better lighting and sounds, and even more polished textures. The gameplay has also been revamped to make it even more engaging and exciting. But what really sets Counter-Strike 2 apart is its support system. Valve has been dedicated to updating the game regularly, fixing bugs, and adding new content. They have also created tools for map creators and modders, encouraging the community to create new maps, and modes that keep the game fresh and interesting. This level of commitment from the developer is what makes Counter-Strike 2 such an excellent example of how a new SOCOM could work too. So there you have it. Counter-Strike 2 is a shining example of how a new SOCOM could be made to work if it was developed and supported properly. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and follow for more.